Welcome in, everybody. Scarves and Spikes here. Tyler, Tommy, Sydney, alongside Blake from MLS Gone Wild. What's going on, man?
Not a thing, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's finally match week.
It's finally match week. Last time we saw you, me and Tommy were up there in the Columbus neck of the woods, and some things happened. Some
Things did happen that day. Yeah, it's funny, man. We recorded that week, and then you guys were sitting right behind me
Yeah.
in the press area during MLS Cup final. Man, the Columbus Crew lifted the trophy right there in front of us. We got to see it live. It was an amazing experience, man, and unbelievable game, and just the culmination of how non-say ball just all came to fruition. And it was a great Mount Everest of the season to finally get there and lift our third MLS Cup.
Now you got to try to run it back in 2024.
Yeah, man, got a target on our back, but we didn't lose many pieces, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. So, expectations are still pretty high.
So when we were with you, it was the first time we met.
Right.
And it's fun watching other people go through the emotions that, a fan has. And we've sat behind you. We sat like a row above. So I had just the perfect view of you and your every emotion you've ever had. I felt like I knew you for years after spending that 90 minutes with you, because you seemed really excited. You didn't seem nervous. The first goal goes in, you're pumped. Second goal goes in, and I see your confidence level sky high. You were ready to jump off into the crowd. And then the goal happens from LAFC. And then it was like, I saw a little worry. And, I've been through it. I've been through the 28-3 Super Bowl, okay? So I know what it's like to just kind of watch things happen in slow motion.
A week without talking about that freaking Super Bowl.
No, I mean, it's a good comparison here. But see, they didn't blow it. But, man, I got nervous for you. When they started taking all their good players out and subbing them out, I'm like, oh, my God, if LA gets that tying goal, I don't know what's going to happen to Blake. He's not going to survive that extra time.
LA had proved a couple times already last season that they couldn't win a final in 2023, so I felt all right. No, but on a serious note, now that you talk about it, going into that, I've never been in a press box, right? I've interviewed players on Zoom and all that good stuff. I've talked to a lot of cool people, but I've never been in a MLS press box. And to be at MLS Cup final, my first time in a press box, I was told, you can't cheer, you can't wear your Darlington Nagbe jersey that you wear during every crew game, and they never lose when you wear that. So I'm just like, man, this is it's going to be a completely different experience. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, if I'm going to enjoy it, but it's going to be completely different. But thankfully, they weren't, they were like, oh, these are the independent media guys. We're going to stick them outside in the press area.
On the roof.
And so if you guys remember, I had 5 seats to either side of me that were just empty. And so I wasn't trying to be loud, but every time somebody did something good, I was pumping my fist, I was talking to myself, and I felt like I was back in my man cave. So it wasn't as, pressy of an experience as I thought it was going to be. I still felt like a fan, but it was awesome, man. If you guys remember, towards the end of the game, I was literally standing up and I had that pole right to my right, and I was swerving back and forth, and I'm I've got my stopwatch going to see how much stoppage time is left. It was an awesome experience, man, and it was definitely a roller coaster of emotions for sure.
It's really funny because you said it was your first time in a press box, and I feel like everybody, because you can be as unbiased of a media member as you want to be, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter. You're going to have a team that you're like, well, I mean, it would be nice if they won. Of course, you go into a Columbus match, it's like us going to an Atlanta match, where it's like, obviously we know who we want to win, right? But you did the same thing that I think every media member has done, where you're sitting there watching the game and you're like, I don't even think you realize you're doing it. It's totally subconscious. And, the ball's being progressed down the field and you're seeing the whole play open up. So you're over there, pointing, just find that space, and you're talking to yourself and
you're coaching them through it like they can hear you.
Yeah. Why can't they see what I see? So I remember seeing you all throughout the game. You were like, right there,
Yeah.
right there.
But the one time I didn't, I didn't see everything. Malty Amundsen saw something field level that I don't think anybody else in the stadium saw with that pass to Yaw, man. And I remember as he hit that pass and you saw Yaw making that dashing run in behind the right back, I was losing my mind then. And
Internally, you're losing your
Yeah,
mind.
like we had the best point of view in the entire stadium up in the press area, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't even see that pass, and Malty Amundsen just put it with just so much English on it with the perfect weight. Like, yeah, man, it was awesome.
So you mentioned, I mean, the team hasn't changed much from 2023. 2024, y'all brought some players in. Derek Jones from Charlotte, and Nostroza from Pachuca. You brought in a goalkeeper from the Israeli league, like Atlanta United. Hagen,
Mhm.
brought him in. Then you bring in Habroni from Crew 2. So what's kind of the makeup of those players from what you've seen thus far? Habroni obviously has been with the system for a couple of years or a few years, but the other guys, what have you seen in them from your research and preparation for 2024?
Well, just from, we'll talk about Taha real quick, Habrun, the kid that just came up through the academy. Like the Columbus Crew have, obviously a history of, especially with center mids coming up through the academy. And really that started with Will Trapp, and now he's over in Minnesota, but he played a half decade for the Columbus Crew. I grew up playing against Will Trapp, and so he was one of the first like notable homegrowns to come through that system. And then Aiden Morris was probably the next one that came up. Sebastian Berhalter, I believe, came through the academy for the Columbus Crew. Now he's over in Vancouver. Sean Zawatsky, who's currently on the Crew roster, came through the Crew academy. Center midfielder. Now he's playing center mid and center back. And then Taha is just the next addition in that line of players that are coming through the academy to the Crew 2 team and to the first team. So that's really good to see. And as far as like projecting what he's going to do this year, he's not going to get a lot of minutes. I think there's an opportunity for him to get spot minutes in the midfield. The Crew are going to be playing in a lot of games this year between all the different competitions we're in with Leagues Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup, and MLS. So I think that he does get minutes. I think the most interesting one for me is Derek Jones, just because it's shown over the past couple of years since Wilfred Nancy has been coaching in MLS that he likes an intra-league player, a guy that can come in as sometimes overlooked or undervalued and bring them in and really get the best out of them. Malty Amundsen was, an asset that wasn't being used in New York City, and we needed an emergency left back last year. We went out and got Malty Amundsen, and he, recorded the game-winning assist in MLS Cup final. Rudy Camacho, who he knew very well from CF Montreal, came in. He was playing for Montreal, but again, getting a little bit older, undervalued. Like they have younger guys in Montreal they can play. We stole Rudy Camacho. Derek Jones is another one, a super undervalued guy that like early in his career trajected very highly, like super high ceiling of a player, played in the same midfield as Tyler Adams in the U.S. youth national teams. And he's bounced around in MLS, most recently in Charlotte. And when he was in Charlotte, he got minutes as a center midfielder, as like a 6, but he actually looked a lot better as a center back. And that's something that Wilfred Nancy loves as well. Like he's probably going to get the best out of this player, and he can use this player in a variety of roles, which is great. Because, I mean, we all know that we might not need a bunch of depth in center mid, but we need some help in center back. But really, we get both in Derek Jones. So, like, that's great. That's a huge signing that just kind of came out of left field. And at first it's like, but then you look more into it and it makes perfect sense. As far as Heinz Stroza goes, I mean, all the highlights I've seen are great, right? But all highlights you see are great. You see all the good stuff those guys do. There's been a lot of questions on, is he going to be the right wing back in the system, or which is what a lot of the MLS pundits think. Matt Doyle seems to think that he's going to be a right wing back. I saw a quote come out from the beat writer for the Columbus Dispatch this past week from Wilfred Nancy and the coaching staff saying that he looks like he could play number 9 for the Columbus Crew. He looks like he has the speed, technical ability. He's creative. I think when I watched him play, I thought he was going to play one of those two positions as like the Diego Rossi or the, Alexandre Matan, but just played a little bit differently, like a wide center attacking mid role. I don't really know. I like the way he plays. He's creative. He can take players one-on-one, which is a different profile than some of the other players that we have. So wherever he fits in, wherever Wilfred Nancy sees him fit best, I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. Young player, he's electric. Should be fun to see him play. As for the goalkeeper, don't know much about him. We got Patrick Schulte in there, so I'm not too worried about it right now.
What if some of the conversations have, I guess, what have they been like not maybe with is not the right word here, but just from Wilfred Nancy in the offseason since he won? I know here in Atlanta with Pineda, it is, there's a focus on defense. Obviously, there's a focus on winning away matches, and there's kind of a culture that they're trying to develop. But what have kind of the notes been from Nancy since he won?
Similar to you guys, like you guys definitely leaked goals last year, but so did the Columbus Crew. We leaked a lot of goals, and that's just by design. Really, that's the system the Columbus Crew play, with possessing so high up the field and leaving 2 or 3 center backs, kind of exposed on the counterattack. So I think, and I've said this on a few different shows, that I think one of the biggest areas of concentration for this preseason is now that Wilfred Nancy has his core center backs together. Malte Amundsen didn't have a preseason with the Crew. Rudy Camacho didn't have a preseason with the Crew. Having those two guys in preseason is huge. Steve Moreira just got there because he was in African Cup of Nations, but having that core of our defense there to really get time to understand and work in that system before they get, before the ball gets kicked, on opening kickoff next weekend, like that's huge. So improvement on the defense, and then just continuing to build on what we built last year. Like it's a very, I think, stable style of play that we have, and it can sustain success, I believe. And Wilfred Nancy he's like live or die by this system. So like nothing is going to change, except maybe we're going to improve upon the defense. The offense is still going to be super free flowing, super possession oriented, and possession with a purpose. So there haven't really been any notes of change or anything like that. But just a focus on the defense is probably the biggest thing out of the Crew camp this preseason.
When you look at sports everywhere, when a team wins a championship, people try to copycat it, right? It's a copycat league. Someone's going to try and copy that. Well, Atlanta and Columbus are basically the same team last year, except you guys beat us, obviously, and you really tightened up on defensively going into the playoffs, right? And that's, Atlanta, that's really it for them. It's just, like you said, like with you guys, just tighten things up and hopefully, get a higher seed, be able to get that third, game 3 playoff game at home, and then go from there. And, it's a flip of a coin through that.
Right.
I'm trying to think about this game on Saturday and where Atlanta is, because I feel like Atlanta games in Columbus just never work out.
Right.
It hasn't worked out here for a while, right?
Day back to the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, they had a few games there that they've had, but last year you look at the games in Columbus and it was dominating from them. Now Atlanta goes into this game healthy, but the only issue is Thiago Almada has just rejoined the team today. So he's not been with the team the entire preseason. If he plays, I think this team will do very well. If he does not play, I could see another Star Wars night rematch here where we get absolutely blown out. Or game 1 or game 3 of the playoffs. Choose which domination of Columbus over Atlanta you want to pick here. But it's going to be one of those situations if Thiago Almada is not available.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, when you look at this game on paper, like I'm so happy first and foremost that this game is the 2 p.m. game on Saturday. Like everybody that's going to be viewing MLS this weekend should be tuning into the Columbus Crew versus Atlanta United. Whoever made the schedule and scheduled this match, they knew what they were doing. They know that there's going to be goals in this game. I think when I just recorded a podcast a little bit ago, I think there was like 23 goals between us in our 5 matches. Like that's insane. There are going to be goals aplenty in this game. And like I said, like you gave up a bunch of goals last year, and so did the Columbus Crew. And you guys have one of the most, like, I'm going to toot your guys' horn for a minute. You guys have a phenomenal team. Like whether Almeida plays or not, like your guys' front 3, Giacomakis, Saba, and Silva on either side of GG, like that's phenomenal. Almeida behind him, and then your guys' 2 like 8s are great. Like Tristan Mayumba came in during the summer and he looked like a pretty good signing. He didn't look great in the playoffs against the Crew because all he did was foul the Columbus Crew players. But
Aiden Morris, cry Aiden Morris, always on the ground, grabbing everybody like.
Oh God, what did I do? No,
you brought back memories. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm gonna go yell at the wall.
No, but Mayumba is a great player. And then you guys just brought in another, center defensive midfielder to play next to him. Like, you guys are a really good team. And I think that, and it's the big question mark around Atlanta this year, right? Like, are they going to be able to keep Almeida? And if they don't, do they have a succession plan? Because, like, if you guys can keep Almeida, which I really don't think will happen, you guys should and could be supporter shield like favorites right now. Like, I really like what this team has built, what Garth Lagerwey has built with this unit that he has. And so, like, back to this game this weekend, it's going to be exciting as hell, man. I'm super stoked for it. There's going to be goals aplenty in this one.
So take it back to the Crew, and very flattering that you think Atlanta United could win the Shield this year. We'll see.
I do, man. I think they're really good. A lot of potential there. Like, if you guys can fix your issues on the back line,
Yeah.
if what's the guy's name, Gregerson, that just came in?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If he can be anything that looks like an upgrade to Miles Robinson, and now you have a really stable double pivot in front of him, that's huge. That's huge for you guys.
No, absolutely. And that's the number one thing with this team. And we talked about it, shipping goals, and not only that, shipping them at inopportune times and letting games slip out of their hands that they were in winning position in. And we've talked about this before, the three of us. Like, if Lenny and I had held on for at least a few of those games, he'd be a top 4 team easily. So I'll say that's kind of the biggest flaw that Atlanta United had in 2023, and the biggest thing one of the biggest things I'm looking for personally, 2024. Can they correct that? What about the Crew? What's the biggest thing you're looking for in 2024? I mean, you're not the hunters anymore. You're the hunted. You have the target on your back, like you said a few minutes ago. But what is your biggest concern about Columbus as this season is about to begin?
Something that's similar to you guys is dropping points at inopportune times. During the last season of Caleb Porter in 2022, I believe we were close. I don't have the stat in front of me, but we might have led the league in drop points after a certain minute, like after the 70th minute or something like that. Like, we were really bad at it, and we showed those same colors multiple times last year. Like, we could have finished higher in the East, just like you guys could have if we didn't drop some of those points. A couple that I can remember were against Orlando City twice this season. Like, gave up leads super late, inopportune fouls that just didn't make sense, substitutions that didn't make sense, shooting ourselves in the foot late in games. Like, that was a problem. It's not something you're going to fix overnight. So hopefully we're 2 years past the Caleb Porters last year, and hopefully we're getting over that. And then just the second one is just complacency. You win a championship and you're like, okay. And then you come out and you start to get smacked around a little bit. Teams have kind of figured you out, figured a way to expose you. And teams already know how to expose us a bit. So if they can figure out a way to slow us down on the attacking side, that could change things. But to be honest with you, outside of those two, I really don't have many concerns. Maybe my only concern, like, if I look at positions on our team, is maybe the right wing back. Mo Farsi came in and played really well throughout the playoffs, but is he going to be a guy that's going to be able to play 2,500 minutes and look like a true first team MLS player, like a guy that's of that caliber? Or is it Heinz Stroza? Is it true that he's going to be playing there? Do we have the depth to compete in all these competitions at the same time? I think that is an important question to ask as well. And when I say compete, I mean actually take them seriously and try to win. I don't know that we necessarily do. We have Christian Ramirez up top, Jason Russell-Rowe up top, Cucho, so like we're fine there. I have a little bit of concern about our central midfield. I do. Now that we're talking about it, we have Aiden Morris, Darlington Nagbe. I have no questions about those two guys. Sean Zawatsky can slide in. Derek Jones, who we talked about earlier, can play multiple positions. So that's good. And then, the center back is kind of what scares me too. I don't know that we have the depth at center back. We have a pretty good 3, but then again, we have a couple guys that can play 2 positions, Sean Zawatsky and Derek Jones. So I don't think we're spread thin. We could use a little bit more depth as well. So those are my main concerns for the Crew.
Is there anybody or any new kind of incoming player that you want to see that you think might not be available? And to piggyback on that, what's your kind of rough starting 11 come Saturday?
What was the first question again? I'm sorry.
So is there any incoming player that you kind of want to see that because normally we're in like that visa watch or other kind of like, oh, you're going to be ready to play kind of moment.
Right.
We thankfully don't really have that to deal with as much this year, but
Okay.
are there any incoming players that you're like, man, it'd be nice if they saw some minutes that might not? And then, yeah, who would be your starting 11?
I'll answer that question in two different ways. I would really like to see what Heinz Stroza brings to the game, just right off the jump in a game that's going to probably be as wide open as the Columbus Crew versus Atlanta United game. Like, I would like to see his attacking dynamism, what he can bring to that game. And then to answer your question a different way, I think Will Sands would be lovely to see. He feels like a new signing for the Columbus Crew. Tore his ACL last year when we were playing against Charlotte, obviously missed the remainder of the season. Seems like he's almost back to 100%. We might not see him in this game, but just I really look forward to seeing him get back on the pitch and him compete with Yaya Boa. Competition is huge for this team. And again, that adds depth to that left wing back spot. They bring two completely different things. And when you look back at the beginning of the Columbus Crew season, actually, Will Sands was great. And it was in the 6-1 game against you guys. Will Sands put in an assist. He pushed the ball past Lennon, blew by him, and then played the ball back to the PK spot. And then might have been Max Arston that finished it. But like, it's somebody that you guys probably remember if you guys remember that highlight. But he's a good player, really young player, and I look forward to seeing him get healthy, come back, get minutes, and compete for that left wing back spot. Now, as far as our ideal starting 11 goes, I think it's similar to what we rolled out last year. Patrick Schulte in goal, obviously. Back three of Camacho, Morera, and Amundsen. Left wing back is going to be Yaya Boa, I would assume. Right wing back is going to be Mo Farsi. The double pivot's going to be Darlington Nagbe, Aiden Morris. The two, we got, and then Alexandre Matan and Diego Rossi in front of them, and then Cucho. Same starting 11 as MLS Cup. Yeah.
Not too bad, right?
Not pretty good, man.
And well, especially in a salary cap league like this, you usually don't see teams stick around even for a second year, right? You got to sell someone's on their way out, one's going to make more money. You're able to keep it all together. That's special.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, we just saw what happened to LAFC this offseason, right? I mean, you name the player, they're probably not there anymore. Kellen Acosta is gone. Chiellini has retired. Palacios was sold. Carlos Vela, his future is up in the air. You go on and on. Max Crepeau is traded to Portland. Like, these are guys, if you're a proven winner, the teams are just in a salary cap league. They just can't pay you anymore. They just can't do it. So you have to look to get a move. And thankfully, the Columbus Crew have been able to keep this core together. Something I will bring up, though, is I do have concerns similar to your guys' concerns about, if you guys were to lose Thiago Almada midseason, right? I have similar concerns about Cucho. I find it hard to believe that if we get to summertime and Cucho has double-digit goals ahead of League's Cup, like, people are going to be calling about Cucho. Cucho is a guy that came from a Premier League side. I could 100% see, and I hate to even say this, but I could see Cucho going off at the beginning of the season just because of the type of team we play, the amount of times we score, the attacking football that we play, that Cucho is going to score a bunch of goals, and the Columbus Crew and Tim Bezbachenko are going to have to make a decision, and what is the price point that we're going to accept, similar to what the conversations that you guys are having in Atlanta. And then somebody else on the Columbus Crew that I don't know if it'll happen in the summer, but maybe next winter is Aiden Morris. Like, he's going to be gone sooner rather than later. Just when that is, I don't know.
I look at right now, I know you're big into fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just a little.
So are you interested in the gambling aspect? Have you looked at Vegas and to see how much of a favorite the Crew are over Atlanta?
We just recorded a podcast a little bit ago about fantasy. I don't have the odds up in front of me, but I know that the Columbus Crew are definitely favorites to win this game, and it's something I would definitely bet on. I don't know what the line is on goals either, but I would probably take the over.
It's 3.5. That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think we get over 3.5 goals?
Man, I hope so. I hope we do, and I think we will. I mean, we had 23 in 5 games last year. I mean, yeah.
I'd bet that too.
Yeah, yeah. See,
what's funny is talk about the 6-1.
I'll disclose. Yeah, if we exclude that one, it balances out a little bit, right? But I'll disclose this on the show. Over Christmas break, my wife came into Ohio for a couple of days, and we were getting ready to watch the Buckeye game with some friends, and they all had their FanDuel out. And like, I've never really been a big sports gambler. Like, I'll talk about fantasy and stuff like that, but they were like, "Oh, you should get FanDuel." And I'm like, and I said, "What's going to happen is I'm not going to get FanDuel. I'm going to make my wife download the app." And so, because if I have it on my phone, I'm going to dump the account in that thing, right? So she has FanDuel, and we'll pick like a game or two over the weekend that we'll gamble on. But now that MLS is back, I'm gonna throw some more money in there and play a little bit.
Real quick, what are your thoughts about the US Open Cup news that's come out? I think in the last few minutes as we're recording this, it looks like it's a go for 2024, but so it's going to be like a hybrid model. Some MLS teams may participate, some may not. Just what's your overall thoughts about the US Open Cup and essentially what's been going on for the past few weeks, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I won't dive too deep into it, but like it's the oldest cup in the United States.
Yeah.
It is what every professional soccer dreams of. It's the David versus Goliath. It's all of those things. It's the lower level side competing against a USL one side, USL championship side, competing against an MLS team, making a deep run. Like it's United States soccer history, really. Like that's what it comes down to. It's soccer culture in America. And for MLS to feel like, we're bigger, better, we're going to withdraw and kind of just monopolize what they're creating here with MLS, Leagues Cup, and CCC. It's selfish, but business in and of itself is selfish. Business is. I don't agree with it. I would love to see it continue how it's been played out for years. And I would love for it to just be covered in a different way, covered in and cared about in a way that was the way that we're caring now about Leagues Cup, and promoted the way that we're promoting Leagues Cup. And it's just, we never did it justice because MLS has never cared about it. And this is just the next step of them not caring about it, is trying to withdraw from it, which sucks. I don't think it's right. And I hope they get it correct, because it's not the right thing to do, and you're losing a lot of fans this way, and just you're kind of killing some soccer culture in America that is slowly growing. But this will be a kick in the what.
Bleacher Report really killed it for me.
Yeah.
Like, showing the games on Bleacher Report was terrible, because my favorite thing, ESPN, was great, right? Because you could put up, 6 games on at once and be able to watch it there. And now I'm got to go to websites and try to figure out how to get it onto my TV. Ridiculous.
Yeah. And they don't advertise for it whatsoever. So unless you're a fan like you or I, you won't know about it. Yeah, dude, they're just not doing it right. They never gave it the respect that historic of a tournament deserves.
I hope to see, and not to get off on that tangent, but I hope to see WB go in with Bleacher Report and put their money where their mouth is, because they had this big summit here in Atlanta back in December about US soccer, with the headquarters coming down here and everything else. And they talk a big game. Talk a really big game about, let's make it's going to be so important, and U.S. soccer, this, that, and the other. And it's like, hey, man, but you have the oldest competition in this country sitting there just getting neglected. And now we're talking about possibly canceling it or messing it up entirely. Drives me crazy. So any particular final thoughts or anything specific that you're like, people need to know about Columbus this year?
Oh, man. Last year, we were probably the most watchable team in MLS, and I think we are going to be again this year. I think that, Columbus Crew are a must-watch soccer team just because the style that we play. But just in general, like, if you guys are listening to the show, you guys need to tune into every Eastern Conference game that's happening this year. I recently sat down and did my Eastern Conference predictions. It's going to be a gauntlet this year in the East. Like, there are some teams that are obviously favorites: Crew, FC Cincinnati, Atlanta's up there as long as they keep Almeida, Orlando. But like, there's tiers to this. But literally, it's going to be an incredible season in the East. There's so many teams that have went out and splashed a bunch of cash to try to make a run and get into the expanded playoffs. And man, it's going to be a hell of a season. So not just the Crew only. This is going to be an incredible season of MLS soccer, and you guys need to make sure that you're tuning into everything, especially in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
That's a better
West.
commercial than when MLS released.
Yeah.
Like that terrible commercial there. Just play that, and I think we're good.
Yeah. And you guys can tune into the West games as well if you guys stay up that late.
Right.
It's got to be the
We'll see.
right draw, though.
Right.
You have a dark horse in the East? Anybody in particular you're like, they shouldn't be good, but they might?
Man. I'll give you two answers. New York City FC is one. I mean, they historically have been a team that makes the playoffs, missed it last year. They massively underperformed. I think they had the fourth highest expected goal differential in the Eastern Conference, yet they finished in 11th place. Like, they just went out and spent 20 mil on two wonder kids, apparently, that should, rack up some goals for New York City FC. They have one of the best defenses in the East last year. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So that's not necessarily an underdog, but they were a massive underperformer that I think I don't know where they're going to finish, but I think they finish in a playoff spot. And then Montreal is probably another one. They just got a new head coach, Laurent Courtois. He was the Crew 2 head coach, had a lot of success there, is bringing Wilfred Nancy's system back to CF Montreal. They went out, they got some players, Raheem Edwards, Huan, who's had success in Orlando and DC, and is a perfect right wing back in that system. They just went out and they got a number 10 and a number 9. And they have a nice young core. Like, for Laurent Courtois to go his first year head coach, and they had some pieces, but to immediately get there and 2 weeks into his tenure, he has a DP number 10. He has a number 9. Like, they might make a run. They might be okay this year. And like, that is my dark horse pick. And I could actually rattle off a bunch of other names. Chicago Fire went out, got, Cal Nacoste, and spent a shit ton of money on a DP number 9. Like, the teams in the East they're fighting for their lives to try to get above that line, because that line is going to be so hard, and teams are going to be fighting right there all season long, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Lots of upsets this year, I believe. I
yeah.
thoroughly believe. A lot of entertaining games, I'm sure. But like you said, in the Eastern Conference, I got to give a shout out, and it pains me to do this because this is an Atlanta United podcast, and it's not that they're a dark horse, but Orlando, I think, has the potential to absolutely kill it this year. Hopefully not against us or y'all, depending on where you're at in the standings. But
yeah,
I got to give a shout to them. So
take him with you. We don't want him anymore.
Were you coughing on purpose, or was that a cough because of what Tyler was saying?
No, it was puke. It was puke.
Yeah, like,
take him with you, Blake.
Yeah, there's one team I really don't like. It's just whenever we play Orlando, like, Orlando just plays with this tenacity and intensity and bite and grit that nobody else really plays with. Like, they play real South American football. Like, it's physical, it's fast, it's tenacious, and like, I don't like it. I don't like playing against Orlando. So like, but they are good, man. I give them a lot of credit. Like, they play a different brand of soccer, but they have a lot of really good players on their team, and there's no reason they shouldn't finish in the top 4 this year.
Yeah.
Everybody's supposed to finish in the top 4.
Everybody.
Like, we keep talking about teams. Every team's like, oh yeah, this top four. Someone's got, we could, everyone's the top 4.
I don't think it's a stretch to say the top 6 in the Supporter Shield will all come from the Eastern Conference.
I don't think that's a stretch at all.
So
actually, it could be a stretch. So what could happen is the top of the East just beats the shit out of each other.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that gives the West a chance to get in there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then MLS Cup just goes to the East by default again.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, we appreciate it, Blake. Where can everybody find you? Because I know you're kind of going back with your show and everything else, and a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a long break. Last year was a busy year, but we're back up and running over at MLS Gone Wild, really just focusing on player interviews there. You can find me MLS Gone Wild on Twitter, Instagram, all those good places, wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Check me out there, subscribe, all that good stuff. I recently had Patrick Ajiman, forward for Charlotte FC, on the podcast. About a 20-minute show, 20-minute interview. If you guys want to go check that out, tap into that one. And then also Drop in Points. It's an MLS fantasy podcast. We just recorded season 2, episode 1 about 3 hours ago. It just launched on Apple and Spotify. Go check that one out. If you guys are interested in MLS fantasy, you can join our fantasy league as well. That's where you guys can find me.
Sweet. So we'll send some of our we have our Patreon and a Discord, and we're doing a fantasy league. So we'll send
Nice.
some people
Send
your
them
way.
your
to get
way.
some advice.
All right, cool. Yeah. Shoot him the link to the podcast as well, man. I think we give some decent advice. We are called dropping points, so take everything that we say with a grain of salt and do your own research, okay, folks?
Yeah.
Cool, man. Blake, we appreciate it, buddy.
Of course, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Blake.
having me.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Talk soon.